My name is Anna. I am 30 years old. And this is my story. It is hard for me to talk. My heart beats fast. My hands shake as I remember. But I need to say it. Because maybe someone out there feels the same pain. I was used. I was betrayed. By the one person I trusted the most. My boss. When I first met him, I thought he was kind. I thought he cared about me. I thought he saw me as more than just an employee. I thought he wanted to help me grow. But I was wrong. So wrong. I grew up in a small town. Life was simple. We didn't have much money, but we had love. My mom worked in a diner. My dad fixed cars. They both worked hard, but they always smiled. I wanted to make them proud. I wanted to show them that I could build a good life. So I moved to the city. I thought the city would give me chances. I thought the city would change my life. And in some ways, it did. I found a job in an office. It wasn't big. It wasn't famous. But to me, it felt like a dream. A steady job. A paycheck every 2 weeks. A chance to grow. And then I met him. His name was Richard. My boss. He was tall, confident, and always smiling. He had a deep voice that made people listen. When he walked into the room, everyone stood straighter. He had power. And he knew it. At first, he was gentle with me. Anna, you're smart, he said. You work harder than anyone else here. Those words, they filled my heart with hope. Finally, someone saw me. Finally, someone believed in me. I worked harder. I stayed late. I did extra tasks, even when no one asked. Because I wanted to prove myself. Because I wanted to make him proud. But slowly, things began to change. He started calling me into his office. At first, it was for work. Anna, I need this report. Anna, can you check these numbers? Simple things. Normal things. But then, his words shifted. Anna, you look beautiful today. Anna, you have the brightest smile. Anna, no one here understands me like you do. I didn't know what to say. He was my boss. He had power. So I just smiled. I just nodded. I just tried to stay polite. Inside, I felt confused. Was this right? Was this wrong? Was this still work? Or something else? Then one night, everything changed. He asked me to stay late. Anna, he said softly, I need you to help me with a special project. Only you can do it. The office was quiet. Everyone else had gone home. The lights above buzzed softly. My heart beat fast. I sat at his desk. He sat close to me. Too close. I could feel his breath on my shoulder. I could smell his cologne, strong and heavy. My hands trembled on the keyboard. Then he touched my arm. Slowly. Firmly. Anna, he whispered, you're special to me. My throat went dry. My chest burned. I wanted to say no. I wanted to stand up and leave. But I froze. I was afraid. He was my boss. What if I lost my job? What if he told people I was ungrateful? What if nobody believed me? So I stayed. I let him lead. And in that moment, I felt like a prisoner in my own body. That night, I went home and cried. I cried until my pillow was wet. I felt dirty. I felt weak. But I also felt trapped. I needed the job. I needed the money. I needed to survive. So I kept quiet. I went to work the next day. I smiled like nothing happened. I told myself, maybe he cares for me. Maybe this is love. Maybe this is how life works. But deep inside I knew it wasn't love. It wasn't care. It was power. And he was using it against me. Weeks passed. He became bolder. He called me into his office more. He touched me more. He whispered things that made my skin crawl. And I stayed silent, because I was scared. But one morning, everything began to fall apart. I walked into the office, holding my coffee. The room felt colder than usual. People stared at me. They whispered. They looked at me with strange eyes. I didn't know why. I didn't understand. Until I saw Richard, standing in the middle of the office, his arms crossed, his eyes sharp. And then, he said words that broke me. "Anna, come to my office. Now." And that's when my life began to change forever. When Richard called me into his office that morning, my chest tightened. I walked slowly. Every step felt heavy, like I was walking into a storm. Inside, the blinds were closed. The air smelled of strong coffee and his cologne. He shut the door behind me. "Anna," he said, "people are talking." My heart stopped. What do you mean?" I asked. He leaned closer, his voice low. "They're saying things about us. About you. You don't want that, do you?" I shook my head fast. "No, sir. I don't." "Good," he said, smiling coldly. "Then keep quiet. Do as I say, and everything will be fine." I nodded, but inside I felt broken. He wasn't protecting me. He was warning me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small apartment, staring at the ceiling. The city outside was loud, cars honking, people shouting, music echoing. But inside, I felt only silence. I thought about my family, my mom and dad, back in the small town. They didn't know what was happening to me. I couldn't tell them. My mom always said, "Anna, be strong. Don't let people walk over you." But I had. I let Richard control me, and I hated myself for it. I thought of my little sister, Emily. She was only 18, still in high school. She looked up to me. She believed I was strong, brave, successful. If she knew the truth, her heart would break. So I kept it inside. I smiled in our phone calls. I told her, "The city is great. Work is fine. Don't worry about me." But deep down, I was drowning. At work, things got worse. Richard called me his favorite. In front of others, he praised me. "She's the best. She's loyal. She does everything right." People clapped politely, but behind their smiles, I saw the truth. Jealousy, suspicion, whispers. At lunch, when I sat down, people moved away. I heard them laugh softly when I walked past. I felt like a shadow in my own workplace. One day, my friend Mia pulled me aside. She was one of the kind ones. She whispered, "Anna, be careful. People think you're close to Richard." My face went red. "I'm not," I whispered back. She looked at me sadly. "I know. But they don't believe that." Her words cut deep. Even my friends doubted me. At home, I tried to escape. I wrote in my journal every night. I wrote about my fear. I wrote about my shame. I wrote about my secret. Sometimes I prayed. I prayed for strength. I prayed for a way out. But every morning, I woke up, dressed, and went back to that office. Because I had no choice. Rent was due. Bills piled up. I couldn't just quit. One Friday evening, Richard stopped me by the door. "Anna," he said, "come with me. Let's go for a drive." I froze. "No, sir. I need to go home," I whispered. His eyes narrowed. Do you want to disappoint me? My stomach turned. I didn't want to go, but I was too afraid to say no. So I got in his car. The leather seats were cold. The city lights blurred past the window. My heart raced. He drove to a restaurant. It was expensive, shiny, full of rich people laughing over wine. I felt out of place in my simple dress. He ordered food for me without asking. Steak, wine, dessert. I sat there quietly, eating little, my fork heavy in my hand. He talked about himself the whole time. His success, his plans, his dreams. He didn't ask about me. Not once. At the end of the night, he leaned across the table. Anna, he said softly, you're mine. Remember that. I nodded. But inside, I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. After that night, everything changed. He didn't just call me into his office. He started calling me at night. He texted me when I was home. He wanted me to answer always. Where are you? Why didn't you reply? Don't forget who gave you this job. The messages filled my phone. I felt trapped in a cage I couldn't escape. One night, Emily called me. Her voice was soft. Anna, are you okay? You sound tired. I almost broke down. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to tell her I was scared, lonely, used. But instead, I forced a laugh. I'm fine, Em. Just working hard. That's all. She sighed. You always work too hard. But I believe in you. You'll be okay. Her words brought tears to my eyes. She believed in me. But I didn't believe in myself anymore. One Monday morning, Richard gave me a folder. Take this home, he ordered. Work on it tonight. Don't let anyone else see it. The folder was heavy. Inside were contracts, numbers, strange details I didn't understand. I asked, Sir, what is this for? He looked at me with sharp eyes. Don't ask questions. Just do it. I swallowed my fear and nodded. But my hands shook as I held the folder. For the first time, I thought, maybe this isn't just about me. Maybe something bigger is going on. That night, as I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the folder, my phone buzzed. It was Mia. She whispered on the call, her voice full of worry. Anna, I heard something today. Richard is planning something, and it involves you. My chest tightened. What do you mean? I asked. I don't know all the details, she said. But people are saying he's using you for something. Be careful. Please. My blood ran cold. Used me? For what? I looked at the folder on my table. The papers. The numbers. The secrets I didn't understand. And suddenly, I knew my nightmare was only beginning. I couldn't stop staring at the folder on my table. The papers looked normal at first. Numbers, contracts, signatures. But something felt wrong. Why would Richard give me these documents? Why would he tell me not to show anyone? I didn't sleep that night. I read the same lines again and again. I didn't understand all of it, but one thing was clear. There were lies in those numbers. I whispered to myself, This looks illegal. My stomach twisted. Was Richard using me for something worse than I thought? The next morning at work, I tried to act normal. I put on a smile, held my coffee, and walked inside. But my hands shook. My eyes burned from lack of sleep. Richard was waiting. He called me into his office right away. Did you work on it? He asked. Yes, sir, I whispered. I handed him the folder. He scanned the papers, then looked at me with a smile. Good girl, he said softly. You're loyal. That's why I trust you. But his smile felt sharp, like a knife pressed against my skin. Days turned into weeks. Richard gave me more papers, more secrets, more things to hide. I felt sick every time I touched them, but I didn't dare refuse. At night, I cried. I cried because I knew what was happening wasn't right. I cried because I felt like a puppet, and he was the one pulling the strings. One afternoon, Mia caught me in the hallway. Her voice was urgent. Anna, listen to me. Something big is going on. People say Richard is moving money. And your name is on some of the files. My blood turned to ice. My name. I whispered. She nodded. Yes. If something happens, they'll blame you. My chest hurt. I felt dizzy. Was this true? I wanted to run into Richard's office, scream, and ask him what was happening. But I knew what he would do. He would smile. He would deny everything. And he would remind me, don't forget who gave you this job. So I stayed silent, trapped. At home, I tried to call my mom. I wanted to hear her voice. But when she picked up, her tone was cheerful. Anna, how's the city? How's work? Your dad and I are so proud of you. I bit my lip hard. Tears filled my eyes. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to scream, I'm not okay. I'm being used. I'm scared. But instead, I whispered, I'm fine, Mom. Everything's fine. I hung up quickly and fell to the floor, sobbing. I had never felt so alone. The pressure kept growing. Richard became harsher. If I didn't answer his calls at night, he shouted at me the next morning. If I looked tired, he mocked me in front of others. You're nothing without me, Anna. Don't forget that. Those words stabbed me, again and again, until I started to believe them. I stopped eating properly. I stopped sleeping. I stopped smiling. I was fading. Then came the day that broke me. It was a Friday. The office was busy, phones ringing, printers humming. Richard called me in. He shut the door and dropped a heavy envelope on his desk. Anna, he said firmly, I need you to sign this. I picked up the paper inside. It was a financial document. At the bottom was a line for my signature. But sir, I whispered, I don't understand this. Why is my name here? He leaned close, his eyes cold. You don't need to understand. You just need to sign. If you trust me, you'll do it. My hand trembled. The pen felt like a weapon in my fingers. If I signed, I could be tied to something illegal. If I refused, I could lose everything. I whispered, I can't. Richard's face changed. His smile disappeared. His jaw tightened. He slammed his hand on the desk. Don't be stupid, Anna. Do you think you can survive without me? Do you think anyone else will hire you? You owe me. His voice thundered. My body shook. Tears filled my eyes. But I didn't sign. I dropped the pen. And I whispered, I can't do this. Richard's eyes turned dark. For a moment, I thought he would hit me. But instead, he leaned back, breathing hard. Fine, he said coldly. Then don't bother coming back on Monday. My world stopped. What? I whispered. You're done here, he said. You're fired. The words hit me like knives. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Fired. Just like that. After everything I had done for him. After all the nights I cried, the days I worked, the times I stayed silent. He used me. And then he threw me away. I stumbled out of his office, my vision blurry with tears. People stared. Some whispered. Some smirked. But no one spoke to me. I walked out of the building, into the cold air. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds. The wind cut through my coat. I felt small. I felt invisible. I sat on a bench outside, shaking. I pulled out my phone. There were no messages, no calls, nothing. I was alone, truly alone. And for the first time, I wondered, what if Richard had destroyed not just my job, but my whole future? I sat on that cold bench, my body shaking, my eyes burning. The city moved around me. Cars honked, people rushed, voices echoed. But for me, time had stopped. I was fired. Just like that. Thrown out like trash. I whispered to myself. He used me. He took everything. And now, I have nothing. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I wanted to disappear. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the walls. The silence felt heavy. My phone buzzed once. It was a message from Richard. It said, "Don't try anything stupid. No one will believe you. Remember, your name is on those papers." My blood ran cold. So it was true. He had used me. He put my name on his dirty work. And now, if anyone found out, I would be the one blamed. I dropped the phone. I curled into a ball on the floor and cried until my chest hurt. 2 days later, Mia came to see me. She knocked on my door, her face full of worry. "Anna, you look terrible," she whispered. I let her in. I told her everything, about the folder, the papers, the signing, the firing. Every word shook as it left my mouth. Mia's eyes widened. "Anna, this is serious. He's setting you up. If those papers come out, people will think you did it, not him." I covered my face with my hands. What do? I don't have proof. Nobody will believe me. Mia held my hand tight. "You need to fight back. You can't let him destroy you." But I felt too weak, too broken. How could I fight a man like Richard? He had money. He had power. He had everything. And me. I had nothing. The next morning, my worst fear came true. I woke up to buzzing on my phone. Dozens of messages. From co-workers. From unknown numbers. From friends back home. The news was out. Office scandal. Employee under investigation for fraud. My name was there. Anna Smith. My picture. My face. I dropped the phone. My body frozen. It was happening. Richard had done it. He made me the villain. By afternoon, reporters stood outside my building. Neighbors looked at me with suspicion. Even my landlord called, his voice sharp. "Anna, I don't want trouble here. If this keeps up, you'll have to leave." My world was falling apart. I called my mom, my voice shaking. "Mom, I'm in trouble." Her voice turned worried. "Anna, what's going on? Tell me." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I cried and told her everything. About Richard. About the papers. About the firing. She was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "My poor girl, you should have told us sooner. We love you. We believe you." Her words warmed me, but they also broke me. Because I realized I hadn't believed in myself. That night, I sat at my desk with the folder Richard had given me weeks before. The papers I was too afraid to read. I looked again. And this time, I saw it. Hidden in the numbers in the contracts was something clear. Signatures that weren't his. Money moved to strange accounts. False reports. And at the bottom of some documents, my name, typed neatly, but not in my handwriting. A forged signature. My hands shook. Tears blurred my vision. He had planned this from the start. He had used me as a shield. If the truth came out, I would be the one punished, not him. I felt anger rise inside me. For the first time, stronger than fear. I stood up and shouted, "No more! No more!" I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't let him win. Not again. I picked up my phone and called Mia. Mia! I found proof. He forged my name. He's moving money. I can't let this go. Her voice shook. Anna, are you sure? If you go against him, he'll come after you. I don't care, I whispered. I'd rather fight and lose than stay silent and let him destroy me. The next day, I walked into the office building. My heart pounded. My palms were sweaty. People stared as I entered. Some gasped. Some whispered. I didn't care. Not anymore. I walked straight to Richard's office. I pushed open the door. He looked up, shocked. Anna, what are you doing here? He asked. I dropped the folder on his desk. Stop pretending, I said, my voice shaking but strong. I know what you did. You forged my name. You moved the money. And you used me as your cover. For a second, his face froze. Then he laughed coldly. You have no proof. I pushed the papers toward him. Then explain these. Explain why my signature looks different. Explain the hidden accounts. His smile faded. His eyes darkened. He stood up fast, slamming his hands on the desk. You think anyone will believe you? You're weak, Anna. You're nobody. Without me, you're nothing. His voice roared. I flinched, but I didn't back down. I whispered, I may be nobody, but I have the truth, and I'm not afraid anymore. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Only the sound of the clock ticking. Richard's chest rose and fell, his face red with rage. Finally, he leaned close, his voice low and dangerous. If you go to the police, if you tell anyone, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. My hands trembled, but I looked him in the eye, and I said, I already regret meeting you. What more can you take from me? I turned and walked out of his office. My legs shook. My heart pounded. But for the first time in months, I felt free. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if I had enough strength to fight. But I knew one thing. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. When I left Richard's office that day, my legs were weak, but my spirit felt stronger. For the first time, I had spoken the truth. For the first time, I hadn't let him silence me. But I knew this was not the end. This was only the start of a battle. That evening, I sat with Mia in her small apartment. She gave me tea, warm and sweet, and listened as I told her everything. You were brave, Anna, she said softly. Not many people would have stood up to him. I shook my head. I don't feel brave. I feel scared. What if nobody believes me? What if he ruins me even more? Mia leaned closer. Then we make them believe you. We collect evidence. We fight back together. Her words gave me a little hope. For so long, I felt alone. But now, I wasn't. The next morning, I went back to the office, not as an employee, but as a fighter. I walked past my old desk. I saw the stares, the whispers. She came back. Doesn't she feel ashamed? Maybe she's lying about everything. The voices stung. But I held my head high. I went to the HR department and demanded to speak. At first, they looked nervous. Anna, you're no longer with the company. Why are you here? I put the folder on the desk. Because your boss is stealing money. And he's using my name to do it. They hesitated, their eyes shifting. But slowly, they began to flip through the papers. Their faces changed. Confusion, shock, fear. I knew then. I wasn't crazy. There was truth in those pages. But Richard was powerful. By the end of the day, he sent me a message. You think you've won? You're playing with fire. Stop now, or you'll burn. I stared at the words, my heart racing. But instead of deleting the message, I saved it. It was proof. Every threat, every manipulation, it was proof. At night, I called my mom again. Her voice was calm but strong. Anna, don't give up, she said. Bad men win only when good people stay silent. You've already taken the first step. Keep going. Her words gave me strength. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully. The next week was hard. Rumors spread faster. Some people said I was brave. Others said I was desperate, trying to save myself. I felt like I was standing in the middle of a storm. But in that storm, I found small lights, people who believed me. Mia. A few co-workers who finally spoke up. Even strangers online who read my story when I shared it anonymously. Each word of support felt like a hand pulling me out of the darkness. Then came the day that changed everything. I was called to a meeting at the office. When I walked in, Richard was there, sitting tall and confident, but his face was tight with anger. Next to him sat two investigators. They turned to me. Miss Smith, we've reviewed the documents you provided. We also traced the accounts. There are inconsistencies. Richard interrupted, his voice loud. She's lying. She's bitter because I fired her. She forged everything to make me look bad. I stood up slowly, my hands shaking. No, I didn't forge anything. He did. And I have proof. I showed them his messages, his threats, the times he told me not to ask questions, the signatures that didn't match mine. The room was silent. The investigators looked at Richard, and for the first time, his confident smile cracked. When the meeting ended, I walked out into the hallway, my body trembling. Mia was waiting for me. She hugged me tight. You did it, Anna. You told the truth. Tears filled my eyes. But this time, they weren't only tears of pain. They were tears of relief. The weeks that followed were not easy. The investigation continued. Richard tried everything, calling me names, spreading lies, even sending people to scare me. But I didn't back down. I kept every message. I saved every paper. I told my story again and again. And slowly, people began to believe me. One night, I sat with Emily on a video call. Her eyes were full of pride. Anna, I used to think you were strong because you lived in the city and had a job. But now I see, you're strong because you fight, even when it hurts. Her words made me cry. For so long, I thought I was weak. But maybe I wasn't weak at all. Then, the news broke. Company scandal. Boss accused of fraud and misconduct. This time, it wasn't my name in the headline. It was his. Richard. I read the article again and again, my hands shaking. Finally, the truth was coming out. I wasn't free yet. There were still questions, still battles to fight. But I felt lighter. I felt hope. For the first time, I looked in the mirror and whispered, I survived. But deep down, I knew the hardest part wasn't over. The hardest part was not proving Richard guilty. The hardest part was healing myself, finding the pieces of my soul he had broken. And that was a journey I still had to face. The day Richard was removed from the company, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, anger, sadness, and emptiness. For months, My life had revolved around this fight. Every morning, I woke up thinking of him. Every night, I went to sleep replaying his words, his threats, his betrayal. And suddenly, it was over. He was gone. The man who tried to destroy me was no longer in control. But what about me? What about the pieces of myself I had lost in the process? I remember standing in my tiny kitchen, looking at the kettle boiling. The steam rose slowly, curling in the air. And I whispered to myself, Anna, now you must learn how to live again. Because survival is one thing, healing is another. At first, it wasn't easy. I jumped at every phone notification. I avoided crowded places, afraid of whispers and judgment. I even doubted my own worth. Was I really good enough? Did I deserve all this pain? But then I remembered something my mother said. Bad men win only when good people stay silent. I was not silent anymore, and that made me stronger than I had ever been. Mia helped me rebuild my courage. We walked in the park together, laughed at silly things, shared dreams. One evening, she said, Anna, you're not broken. You're just growing new wings. Her words stayed with me. Maybe I wasn't ruined. Maybe I was transforming. I also went back to therapy. For years, I had ignored my pain, telling myself to be strong. But strength is not pretending nothing hurts. Strength is facing the hurt and still choosing to move forward. I sat in that small office with soft yellow walls, and for the first time, I cried without shame. I told the therapist everything, the betrayal, the fear, the humiliation, the anger. And she told me, gently, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. Those words were like medicine to my soul. Months passed. The investigation continued, but I no longer lived in fear. Richard was facing consequences. I was facing healing. One day, I received a message from a former coworker. Anna, I'm sorry. I didn't believe you before. I was scared. But now I see you were right. You're brave. Thank you for speaking up. I cried when I read it, because for so long I wanted someone, anyone, to say those words. And now they did. Slowly, my life started to bloom again. I applied for new jobs. At first, I was afraid no one would hire me. But then, I realized something important. I was not just an employee. I was a survivor. I was a fighter. And I had skills, talents, and a heart that no one could steal. Eventually, I found a small startup that welcomed me. On my first day, the manager said, "We want people with courage here. And from what I've heard, you have plenty of it." I smiled, my chest warm. For the first time in a long time, I felt valued. But the biggest change was inside me. I no longer blamed myself. I no longer saw myself as a victim. Yes, Richard used me. Yes, he tried to break me. But he didn't win. Because I stood up. Because I spoke out. Because I refused to disappear. And now, as I share my story with you, I want you to remember something. Sometimes, life will throw people in your path who try to use you, control you, or break you. Sometimes, you'll feel small, voiceless, invisible. But you are never truly powerless. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And your courage can change everything. I used to think being strong meant never crying, never falling, never breaking. But now I know, real strength is in rising after you've been broken. In speaking when your voice shakes. In walking forward, even when your knees tremble. I was used. I was betrayed. I was fired. But I was not destroyed. I am still here. I am still standing. And I am stronger than ever. So if you're listening to me right now, and you feel like your world is falling apart, please hold on. Please don't give up. One day, the pain will turn into strength. One day, the tears will turn into wisdom. And one day, you'll look back and realize you survived what was meant to break you. This is my story. But maybe, in some way, it's your story too. Because pain is universal. But so is hope. And as long as we keep moving, keep believing, and keep fighting, no one, not even the worst person, can take away our light.